welcome to Smaulgld's episode 2 of the Dark Side series. Episode 2 will deal with the dark side of a cashless society. Now, I started working on research on the cashless society a few years back when I had heard rumblings of it in theory, and I am shocked at the pace of change that we've had moving towards a cashless society. The most recent shock has been in India, where overnight the prime minister went on television, reminiscent of Richard Nixon going on television in 1971 and ripping up the gold standard. President Modi of India, prime minister, went on TV and basically said, by tomorrow night, your 500 and 1,000 rupee notes will no longer be legal tender. And he is trying to make the cashless society happen literally overnight. And when I started researching this a couple of years back, I thought this would be something gradual. It would happen on its own. It was something that governments would cheer for. But I never expected governments to, especially a government that impacts maybe 1 in 6 people on earth like India, to put forward a proposal like this. And of course, it has to do with control and fighting corruption and terrorism and so on. But there is some convenience in going cashless, but we're going to go through the dark side of a cashless society today and some of the main reasons, and you have them all in one place. This way, if you ever need a good reference point, you just refer to this video, refer to the link below, the dark side of a cashless society. So when people talk about a cashless society and they're not trying to sugarcoat it, they're not government apologists, they talk about convenience. And the problem with the convenience argument is, I like to paraphrase Ben Franklin, those who give up liberty for convenience deserve neither liberty or convenience. So this enhanced convenience is a dual-edged sword. A cashless society may be more convenient, but it means a lack of freedom. We're going to go through some concrete examples and hypothetical examples of how your freedom is lost when cash is removed as an option. There's nothing wrong with choosing not to use cash. It's quite another thing to be forced to accept a cashless society and basically be at the beck and call of the government issuer who issues the cash, because if you can't use anything else, you're kind of stuck. Now, Alan Greenspan once said this about gold. Gold and economic freedom are inseparable, that gold is an instrument of laissez-faire, and that each implies and requires the government. Again, I'll paraphrase that and say the same about cash. Cash and economic freedom are inseparable. That cash is an instrument of laissez-faire, and that each implies and requires the other. So let's go through some of the significant risks and downsides of enhanced convenience. First of all, cashless means automatic. If money is easy to spend, it's also easy to take. Convenience can easily become tyranny. I'll give you an example. Automatic payments that come directly from your bank account illustrate the point. Now, here's a letter that I got from my health insurance company. They sent it to all their policyholders. Hey, good news. We have good news to share with you. They're saying this with, I guess, with a straight face as they're laughing, typing it up and sending it to me. You get to keep your current health plan and networks for a doctor for another year. Your monthly rate will go from $891 to $987. By the way, this is 3 years old, this letter. It's gone to like $1,200. But here's the good news. We'll just adjust your rates automatically, and you'll just continue to pay your premium. It's that simple. Hooray for cashless. I don't have to do anything. I am forced to buy health insurance, and if they want to raise the rates, they just take the money out of my account. There's nothing I can do about it, and that is your Affordable Care Act. And that's only with insurance. Again, if they decide you need to buy other things, they can set the price. They can take the money out of your account and say, thank you very much for buying your insurance. Thank you for buying your broccoli, whatever it is. So that Anthem letter, if you like your plan, you can keep your plan. Just pay more, and we'll make it easy with these automatic deductions. The next risk, as we mentioned, is the risk of confiscation. The convenience of digital money that allows you to spend your money easily also makes it easier for banks, governments, and thieves to take it. We saw this done in Cyprus. They had a bail-in. The bank was failing in Cyprus. And just unilaterally, The bank decided there was some bailout by the ECB and the International Monetary Fund, but they said if we're going to bail them out, the depositors got to step up to the plate too. Now, this was done unilaterally. The depositors simply saw a portion of their money in the bank gone. They didn't meet. There was no meeting of creditors, which are the depositors, with the bank. They just pulled their money out of the bank and said, there you go, sorry, and what are you going to do about it? Now, if it was cash that you had, they'd have to come and get it. They probably have to file legal proceedings, and there'd be some dispute whether you owed the money or not. But here, they just decided the fact that you had money in a bank and it was capable of being taken, meaning it was digital, it was supposedly in your account. Not that there was ever the amount of cash to cover the amounts that were in the account, but the point being was it represented a value of money in the account. And they said, well, okay, we can just take it. And they're talking about doing that. We haven't seen it happen yet, but I guarantee it will happen again. They call it bail-inable debt. But at least this time, I think what they're talking about is telling the depositors, hey, you put your money in, you're not a depositor, you are a creditor, you're an unsecured creditor, and if this bank ever has trouble, you're the first one out, and we're just going to take your money. So if you think your money is safe in the bank, think again. It's another one, civil forfeiture, which I call seize first and ask questions later. So any of you know that the government can take your money, like the IRS, without notice or reason given, if they believe that your bank account deposits or withdrawal activity is suspicious or involve a pattern designed to avoid reporting requirements. They can just seize your account. Finished. You got nothing to say about it. It's gone. They have it. And it's up to you now to figure out how you're going to get that money back and to prove that you haven't done anything wrong. And there are many cases where people had deposited $9,000 a number of times in a row, and the IRS said, well, that looks suspicious, so we're just going to take all the money in the bank account. And in that particular instance, the reason the person did that was he had cash receipts. He was only insured up to $10,000 by his insurance company to walk the money to the bank, so that's why he was doing it. He wasn't trying to avoid any reporting requirements. But again, if they can take your money so easily, they will. And that puts the burden on you to try to get it back. So this whole possession is 9/10 of the law. Well, the 9/10 of the possession isn't with you in a cashless society. It's with the entity that's supposedly holding your cash. And those people who say, oh, I don't do anything wrong, I have nothing to worry about. Think again. The example I just gave could happen to anybody. It could be a mistake. Doesn't matter. In a cashless society, they seize first and they ask questions later. Risk of theft. Now, there are some people, I think this is dim, that think that it's harder to steal money if it's digital. So this guy at ABBA, his name is Bjorn Ulvaeus, I guess that's how you pronounce his name. Money, 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 he sang with the other members of ABBA. He said he became interested in eliminating cash after his son house was burgled. And this guy's reasoning was, if you eliminate cash, then you eliminate theft. Wrongo star. That's one of the most foolish things you can say, because it's much easier to steal money out of a digital bank account than it is to rob somebody who might put up a struggle, who might shoot back at you, who might sick the dogs on you. I mean, you can steal money from anywhere in the world. You can be in Romania and steal someone's bank account in London. You can be in New York and steal someone's bank account in Nairobi. Doesn't matter. You never have to confront the victim. You just take their money, you hack into their account, or you hack into a bank's account. So the idea that somehow this grand and new vision of a cashless society eliminates theft is not only misguided, it's just wrong and stupid. But you can expect a pop star to have views that are okay. You know, they're not necessarily economists. They don't necessarily know better. They're idealistic. If you go to the Abbey Museum in Sweden, they don't take cash. He thinks he's doing his part to bring the world into the 25th century. I don't know. But Bill Gates, who supposedly should know better, and also because Bill Gates has produced software that I would suspect has had security holes in it before, he says cash is a bit of a trap. It can be stolen. As if cash can't be stolen or digital money can't be stolen online. Any event, that's Bill Gates. If you want to click on it, I didn't embed it because I don't want to see his face. But you click on that, you can hear him talking about the cashless society. And of course, you don't need me to tell you. There's stories of banks, bank accounts, Bitcoin, digital wallets, all being hacked, and more money stolen that way than ever has been for people getting stuck up on the street or having their house robbed. I mean, the amount of money that can be stolen with a mouse click is enormous. So risk of theft is easier, despite what the guy from ABBA and Bill Gates say. And I say, think digital money is safer than cash and can't be stolen. Think again. Now, crime is also easier. Now, some people argue that because if you're cashless, crime will go down and drug dealers will go out of business. Now, Mr. Oldvinus, I'm sorry for butchering his name, he said, this is the guy from ABBA, without cash, we would avoid the bicycle thief and the television thief. And who would buy the copper that is stolen if they could not sell it for cash? Well, his imagination for songs far exceeds his imagination for fencing stolen goods because bicycles, TVs, computers, and cell phones, they're going to continue to be stolen in a cashless society because they have value in it themselves, and they'll be stolen for use. People just want the bicycle, they'll steal it, they don't have to sell it, or they're stolen and they'll sell in exchange for other forms of money. They'll sell it for Bitcoin, they'll sell it for other currencies, they'll sell it for silver or gold, or they'll trade it for items of similar value. Again, the crime isn't going to stop because there's no cash, and that somehow now we're going to catch you when you try to sell that bicycle. No, if the guy just wants to keep the bicycle, he stole a bicycle. He never has to turn it in for cash, or he can exchange it for something else, and no one will be the wiser. Then he was saying drug dealers would go out of business. No, they'll just take payment for their wares in other in-kind services or national or other cryptocurrencies. So the idea that you're going to cut down on crime is ridiculous. The idea that you can't steal digital cash is also ridiculous. So in a cashless society, theft will occur online and in far larger amounts than cash heights. And as I say, an online thief never has to confront his victim, never has to commit violence, never has to crack a safe, get past an alarm system, dog, or harm guards, and carry away his loot. Rather, all he has to do is find out where the money is online, and it involves no risk of death or threat to the thief's personal safety, and it can be done, as I mentioned, anywhere in the world. So if you think crime will go down if we go cashless, think again. Here's another one: risk of system failure. Cash doesn't, just like gold, doesn't go bad. Cash can go bad. It can burn. You can lose it. It can just kind of get old. But the cash system doesn't fail. Now, without cash, the value of currency would have no independent value outside of a functioning banking system. So if that banking system isn't working, then there's no cash. There's no transactions you can make because the entire system doesn't work. So if the banking system is down due to a power outage, solar flare, financial crisis, internet crisis, hack, network crash, your money is unavailable and potentially gone. And what if the backup files are lost? How do you prove you had $5, $10, $15,000 in your account? You can't. It's finished. So system failure, you're basically creating a circumstance where you don't have multiple systems, multiple currencies, multiple ways of making payments. You have one national system, and if it goes down, you can imagine what happens, especially if they lose who has what cash. So if you think a digital banking system is stable and secure, think again. The next risk is a risk of being exiled from the system. Now, let's say the digital banking system somehow is 100% foolproof and it can't go down and it's been tested and it's the most bulletproof thing you ever saw. Well, the operators of the system, they can decide they're going to shut you out of the system because you've done something wrong, or they think you've done something wrong, or very worse, they think you might do something wrong in the future. They think you have bad credit, you haven't paid, whatever reason, you owe child support, whatever the reason is. We haven't done anything. They just make a mistake. I think Ted Kennedy once was on the no-fly list. He probably should have been on the no-drive list, but in any event, that's the kind of mistake that can happen. But even if it's a mistake, how long do you think it's going to take the government to figure out that they made a mistake? And what good does it do you for 3 weeks? They finally tell you, oh, it wasn't you, it was a guy who sounded like you. Or we didn't think that, I'm sorry. Well, sorry is not good enough because for 3 weeks you have no way of conducting business whatsoever. So it can be, sure, they can kick bad actors off. They can also kick innocent people off by mistake, or they're just political enemies. They just decide, oh, you know what? You're raising money for a political candidate that we don't like, and we happen to be running the system this month, so we're going to shut you out of it. And then we're going to claim later it was just some type of mistake. Again, if you have no access to the banking system, how are you going to pay your bills and buy items you need? If you think a cashless system is more convenient, think again. That is the lack. You talk about being inconvenienced. That's more than being inconvenienced. That's being shut off from your cash. So you have a risk of not having access to the system. Now, what if you don't have the means to have access to a computer, a smartphone, or internet connection? You hit on bad times, or you lost your phone for whatever reason, you don't have access. Well, or your phone gets damaged or stolen. Oh no, I'm sorry. It would never happen in a cashless society that your phone would get stolen, because what would they do with it? They can't sell it for cash. But anyway, let's say your phone gets stolen, because it would get stolen. You've got no backup. You have no way of accessing the banking system. What are you going to use to buy food, pay your bills, till you get another phone? And how are you going to get another phone? You don't have the way to get online to get another phone. And if you think it can't happen to you, think again. The next one is, now they talk about saying that this cuts down on crime, having a cashless society. Wrong go again. You have a risk of creating a vast, powerful criminal underground economy. Why? Cash is contraband. Banning items or substances often increases their allure. So if you pass laws prohibiting widespread behavior, you're going to have a lot of people willing to break those laws. Think about the 18th Amendment to the Constitution. Which one was that? We weren't allowed to buy or consume alcohol. How many people didn't buy and consume alcohol during the 20s? It's legion how many people were drinking and selling and buying alcohol. Why? Because the law was stupid, and the 21st Amendment got rid of it. So people are going, if they're kicked out of the system or they're just offended by this, they will break the law. Today, millions break drug and gun laws to procure narcotics and firearms. So the more laws you make that don't serve the people, the more people are going to violate the law. And if you think about it, if the law isn't helping the people, that's what a government's supposed to do. It's supposed to secure your liberty according to the Constitution by creating laws and making sure that people don't steal your property and don't kill you. And if indeed it's the government that's preventing your access to your property, which is your money, and people are going to break the law. They're going to have to if you can't pay for something because they've booted you out of the system. Then what else are you going to do? You're going to have to find a way to use something other than cash. So you ban cash, and the number of people willing to break the law and use banned currencies would explode exponentially. That brings you to Bitcoin. Now, Bitcoin, in my view, is as worthless as fiat currency in that it has no intrinsic value. However, there's a distinction. Bitcoin is voluntary. Bitcoin also doesn't kick you off the system. If, for whatever reason, Bitcoin is anonymous. You use Bitcoin because you want to, and other people use Bitcoin because they want to. And not only is it anonymous, it has confidence of the people that use it. A lot of confidence of the people that use it, because the way it's set up to have a limited number of Bitcoin, and the system of security and the way you verify payments always seems to work. The only problems they've had with Bitcoin have nothing to do with Bitcoin, have to do with hacking of the Bitcoin exchanges. But Bitcoin has worked very well. So one of the problems with cashless is they can't go cashless because people, as I mentioned, will go outside the system. Now, it's not illegal to use Bitcoin right now. It's not illegal to use alternative currencies. But one of the reasons they move towards a cashless society isn't for convenience. It's basically to make it the only way you can transact. So Bitcoin will be used far more because, in my view, Bitcoin would have less value if you didn't have an overbearing fiat issuer who can print money at will and who could now create a cashless society and basically confiscate your cash by saying that your notes, like the Indian notes, are demonetized. Bitcoin can't do that to you. So the advantage of Bitcoin is it's voluntary, it's trusted, it's outside the system, and anyone can use it, and they can't kick you out of the system. So that is the big advantage of Bitcoin that I see. But absent a in a normal free market, I would think Bitcoin wouldn't be worth very much. Bitcoin's main attraction for me is that it is a stable, voluntary system that works. And that for that reason, I'm in favor of it. But I'm less in favor of it than I am against fiat currencies. But I guess Bitcoin is an anecdote to fiat currencies. And of course, then they're going to have to go after cash. People without, if your bank account has been seized, people are going to revert, as we say, to other means. So you think the government will collect more taxes in a cashless society? Think again. They might collect fewer taxes because they'll spend more money combating illegal currencies and transactions. So again, unintended consequence of trying to force people into a system that they don't necessarily want. You're going to see people trying to resist that system, and it may cause the cost of compliance may be even greater, and you may not eliminate any avoidance of corruption or loss of taxation because criminals are going to be criminals. I think that's one of the things that they don't realize. They will find another way to transact. They're not going to say, you know what, now that they've eliminated cash, now that we can't, like crime didn't exist before US dollars existed. Somehow they just were no criminals before there was cash available. Criminals will always find a way to steal stuff and to get value for their stolen goods. Another reason, the dark side of the cashless society is it raises the cost of doing business. So if there's no cash, even though the cost of producing cash is near nil, a monopoly can charge whatever it wants to use digital cash in the form of holding your money. Here you go, your negative interest rates. That's why they love negative interest rates. You put your money in the bank because you have to. Otherwise, why would you put, if they're going to deduct 1% a month or 1% a year, whatever it is, whatever the negative rate is, why would you do it? Because you have to. Because if you didn't have to, the common sense solution is you take your cash out of the bank, you stick it in a mattress, you stick it in a private vault, you do something with it, but you don't leave it in the bank so they can just keep taking it away. Well, if they eliminate cash, well, then you can't do that. So that means that the government can now charge a fee basically to hold your money. And it doesn't cost them anything to hold anything because they're not holding anything. It's not like when you arrange for gold or silver storage, they got to take the bullion and put it on pallets. They got to stick it in a vault. They have to have security. No, they don't do anything. They just move a digital ledger. So this gives the banks more power, and it means that they will pay issuing banks a portion of every transaction. And what are you going to do? Like today, you could say, well, I won't use PayPal, I'll use something else. Well, not if everything runs through this digital system. If they decide they want to charge because the tax revenue is down, or they want to, whatever they want to do, whatever the government wants to do, they need to raise money. Well, they don't have to confiscate your money. That might get people a little annoyed. They just raise the fees on the transactions. You won't see it, you won't notice it that much, but they can raise billions of dollars by skimming money off the top. It's like running a casino. They just skim the transaction fees off of the transactions. And if you have nowhere to go, it's a monopoly. I guess you're kind of hosed. So if you think it's going to reduce transaction costs, it should, but not if you have a monopoly issuer. They'll take it. And it results in a loss of freedom is another reason, another dark side. Remember, bake that cake, pay that raise, buy that insurance. By that I mean we've entered a period of time where people have to perform services for others, as in the case, I think, of Christians who didn't want to bake a cake for a gay couple. Pay that raise, that's minimum wage laws. They make you pay your workers more than you want to pay them. And buy that insurance, the Obamacare. You have to buy insurance. So we've seen these outcome-based politics erode personal freedom in recent years. And going cashless may be convenient when you choose to buy something, but if a purchase is thrust upon you officiously by government order, like healthcare insurance premiums, your money can be removed from your account to pay for it. Conveniently, of course, right? Simple as that. They just take it out. And this type of forced convenience, how convenient, results in a removal of freedom of choice in how you may wish to spend your money. In The House of the Dead, Fyodor Dostoevsky, a Russian novelist who you may know wrote Crime and Punishment, said, "Money is coined liberty, and so it is 10 times dearer to a man who is deprived of freedom. If money is jingling in his pocket, he is half consoled, even though he cannot spend it. Money can always and everywhere be spent." And I say take cash away and you remove that coined liberty in your pocket. Loss of property rights. Calvin Coolidge once said, ultimately property rights and personal rights are the same thing. Property rights are the foundation of a free society. If you don't have control, ready access, or the ability to spend your money when and as you please, you don't really own it. Rather, you are co-owners of the currency issuer, the bank, who has veto rights over the use of your currency. Think of it as a partnership. You're equal partners, except the partner always has the right to tell you to go take a hike. Okay, so it's when you have cash in your hand, no one can tell you what to do with it. There's no co-owner of it. Same with gold or silver. Well, when you have money in the bank, you're a co-owner with the bank. They let you have that money there. In fact, they'll skim off the top in the negative interest rates. But if they decide you don't entitled to have it, or the government tells you you're not entitled to have it, or they need it because their bank is failing, well, you're now the junior partner and they'll take the money. Loss of privacy. This is a very important one people don't think of. In a cashless society, there is a loss of privacy. Digital money offers convenience of allowing you to track and budget your money online. Wonderful if you choose to do so. Such a system, however, also leaves a permanent digital footprint of where you spend your money, accessible to just about anyone who has access to your account, including criminal hackers and government agencies. Now, a common objection to this privacy invasion, hear it all the time, is if you have nothing to hide, you got nothing to worry about. However, I'll give you a quick example. You can buy perfectly legal items. For example, a Confederate flag or a hammer and sickle communist flag. Now, people may find those flags distasteful, but as of now, they're not illegal. You could buy an over-the-counter drug like Sudafed because you have allergies. Well, in either of those cases, that may give the government reason to believe that you are a threat. Or, in the case of the communist flag or the Confederate flag, that somehow that means you're ready to take up arms or you're going to go on some murderous spree because you happen to have bought one of these flags. Well, or they may think because you bought Sudafed and let's say you got some real serious allergies, maybe they were on sale and you bought like 6 boxes of them. They think you're making, I don't know what you may think you make crystal meth with it. I'm not sure. But in any event, the point is, you can buy perfectly legal items. They can know you buy these legal items, but they can infer from those legal items that you're engaged in illegal activities. And then they can look at your profile. They can say, well, he didn't buy a Confederate flag. He didn't buy a communist flag. He didn't even buy Sudafed. But the stuff he buys, that's kind of what criminals buy. We did a profile. We've done some data analysis. This guy's, we can't say, any one thing he bought, but he has the profile of a criminal. So just to be on the safe side, he may be even a terrorist, we're going to shut his account off. So buy the wrong items and you can find yourself on a list and you can have your account shut down. So if you think, well, I'm only going to buy legal items in a cashless society, I'm law abiding, I'm not a terrorist, I don't do anything wrong, you got nothing to worry about, think again. Here's another important one: loss of understanding, value, and responsibility. Now, when you have cash in your hand, it's tactile. So you kind of know, I got 20 bucks in my pocket. I got $50 in my pocket. I got 10 singles. I got $10. When you don't have cash, you're in la-la land. Consumers are no longer participants that evaluate tangible value based on how much cash they have in their wallets. They see what they want to buy. They don't think, how much credit do I have? How much money do I have in my account? No, they just buy stuff. You become a mindless spender without a sense of the value of the items you buy, without understanding of their actual cost. So when you don't have cash and you don't make an exchange, you don't have the same market participants. I like to use the example of my grandmother when she went to the store back at the turn of the century. What they used to do in Italy and in all market areas of Europe, is they would go to market, and the fruit seller, the vegetable stand, whatever it was, they would have their prices up, and it would be based on, if they got a big load of tomatoes in, they're going to sell them for less. They don't always have the same price for tomatoes. And so the market participant back then, the housewife, had a sense of economics. They would go and they would see there's lots of tomatoes there, and the guy would quote a price, and my grandmother would say, no, how about this price? And they'd bargain, and eventually they come up with a price very quickly. And it was based on the abundance. Now, sometimes the fruit seller would get a lot of tomatoes. He wouldn't put them all out, and then he'd say, oh, there's not that many left. Okay. So you could see how you get this back and forth understanding of markets almost intuitively. You don't have to have an education. You don't have to have gone to school and become an economist. You understand supply and demand. You understand how much money you left the house with to go buy the daily groceries. And so you can't buy more than what you have. So cash was very useful in making people responsible citizens and market participants. And children that grew up saving money in piggy banks, counting their pennies, nickels, and dimes, they learned the value of money through tactile experience and handling money. Even though today's coins aren't, gold and silver, and they still represent a kid can see what they're worth and he can stack them up. But when you put the kid on a credit card, the value, the understanding of value and responsibility is pretty much gone, because a cashless society turns money and value into digital abstractions as defined and controlled by the banks and the central planners. Well, thanks for listening. I hope you enjoyed this. This was episode 2 of the Smaulgld Dark Side series. Now, there are more coming up. I have listed on the side of there you go, the dark side. So we've already done the dark side of artificially low interest rates. We've got a few more to go. There's also more to come on the Cashless Society, so please subscribe to Smaulgld. It's free. Put in your email address there. Also, if you're interested in buying precious metals, please do so through the site. Smaulgld gets a small commission. You pay no more, no less than if you were to buy your precious metals through these sites on your own. And thanks for listening.